Good day and welcome to MAXforum from the Neuroverse, Part 3, The Road to Recovery. I'm Kay Matchlock, the founding director of Media Art Exploration, also known as MAX. At MAX, we pursue the goal of artists and their art, providing a way forward, lighting the road to recovery. And in this forum, these three artists will explore how listening, how the presence required for listening informs their work and adds to the experience of their audience. All three of these artists are members of our 2021 Max Machina cohort. That is our incubator for new work that harnesses and interrogates the scientific and technological advances of our time. And the applications for the 2022 cohort will open in mid to late winter of 22, and we ask you to go look at our Max Machina page if you are interested in that. So all of these artists manage to make work that is moving and impactful and technologically very sophisticated. That is a rare and wonderful combination, and we are delighted to have them here to share their insights. So Annie's piece, Annie Lewandowski is joining us. Her piece, she was lead artist on Siren, Listening to Another Species on Earth, where the composers of the sea, you will hear from the composers of the sea, the humpback whales. And we have Gershon Dublon, who's from Slow Immediate, and his work Wandering Mind was presented at the festival, and that intersects with neuroscience and your experience in the liminal state between waking and sleeping. It's a beautiful piece. And Nini Danier, and she presented Doppelganger with the Noon Collective at the festival, which you will see again, I am sure. So all of these artists are extraordinary, and we are lucky to have them here today. So the only thing I will do prior to opening up the conversation is to acknowledge that we are posting this from the unceded territories of the Lenape people. So thank you. Now I welcome them to this MAXforum on Zoom, so they will appear.
Thanks so much, Kay. It's really great to be here, and it's great to be here with Gershon and Nini. So in my practice, I'll talk a little bit about what it's looked like for this project. So when I began researching humpback whale songs, I was meeting with a bioacoustics researcher, Katie Payne, at her home in Ithaca, and it was listening on cassette tapes to recordings she made in the 1970s and 1980s in Hawaii and Bermuda. I eventually digitized those recordings for Katie, and that involved me being in a very small room in a Cornell library and going through many, many hours of tape. And all of this kind of listening was having never actually been in the presence of a whale myself. Fast forward 2 years, and Katie and I traveled to Hawaii together to record with the Hawaii Marine Mammal Consortium, and really transformative experiences listening there led to a lot of the vision for the piece Siren that we shared and created for the MAX Festival. So I'd like to share image 1 first, please. And in this image, Katie and I are listening in the boat. We were in an 18-foot Boston whaler, and the conditions on the kind of lee side of Hawaii's Big Island were very calm during the time we were there. And 2 scientists that we were on the boat with thought that if we turned off the motor, we'd be able to hear the humpback song above water. And so what you see in this image here is actually, there's a recorder next to us, but we haven't actually turned it on. We're listening to the song resonate the hull of the boat, which was a really profound listening experience. It kind of felt like this kind of vibration coming from underneath and sort of radiating skywards. And it was like nothing I'd ever seen before, and just kind of worked simply through resonating the hull of the boat. It was kind of muffled, kind of low frequencies, kind of indistinct, but absolutely kind of enveloping. If we go to the next image 2, another really transformative experience listening was swimming in the water. 10,000 humpbacks come to breed in Hawaii during the winter months, and the male humpbacks sing. And when in this position in water, you also can feel yourself completely immersed in the song. And again, different frequencies are present and you lose a lot of the directionality of listening. But if a humpback is close enough, it can resonate your body, which is a really, the low frequencies, which is a really powerful listening experience. So as I was thinking of the, and so another way of listening, let me get to that first, was I wanted to bring this experience back to Ithaca, where I live, and transform it into a artistic piece. So I recorded with a hydrophone, an underwater microphone that I kind of dipped 30 feet below the water's surface and recorded humpback singing over several days. And so let's play excerpt number 3 now, just to give you a sense of what it sounded like through the hydrophone. And this is of one humpback that you sing, you hear singing, which is foregrounded, and then you can kind of hear in the distance to other humpbacks singing the same song asynchronously. So when you're ready for excerpt 3. Okay, thank you. And so ultimately, this was transformed into this sort of multimedia installation. And I'll just play a brief excerpt now, and I'll get more into detail with that later. But it's a several speaker array with 1 or 2 subwoofers. And I'm trying to kind of simulate a kind of creative memory of how all of these different experiences of listening felt and sounded. So if you could finally play number 4, please, for the video. And this is from Cornell's Johnson Museum. Okay, thank you.
And Bershan.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Kay, for the invitation. And I'm really glad to be here with Nini and Annie. So listening for me has been a kind of intersection of a body of work and research and art practice that kind of have, in a way, always been parallel and always been connected for me. There was something that there was a talk that I saw really early on in my research career that kind of crystallized the connection for me by the sound artist Nick Ryan, who started his talk by showing images of people listening in public places that he had taken photographs. And they all had this face of kind of obvious concentration. You could tell they were deep in concentration, and is this kind of absence from their surroundings, you know, sitting in a crowded place, but looking away from everything, but very obviously rooted in the place that they were in. And that kind of tension between presence and absence, like the practice that kind of evoked in the faces, was something I really wanted to explore from a research perspective, because it felt like something that was missing from or de-emphasized by a lot of the technologies that were being developed around me in my research domain. And also because it just felt like a really beautiful thing that we do. And for me, listening is a really great way to explore this really permeable boundary on sensitivity or permeable limit on sensitivity. We don't know how far out we can hear. We know that if we concentrate, we can hear things just a little bit better. And so that practice actually can change how we hear in a very kind of continuous and dynamic unfolding way. And so that's kind of what crystallized my practice and my research at the same time. I went on from there to do a lot of different types of recording projects, and one of them behind me is live a live feed from one of the places where I've done a lot of recording. It's a wetland restoration site in Massachusetts, where we installed dozens of microphones that have been recording continuously 24 hours a day for around 8 years now. So it amounts to maybe 40 years of sound recorded from these multiple microphones altogether. And we started to treat this as kind of, it's a corpus, it's a record of the restoration along many different dimensions. One very obvious one is that when we started recording there, the soundscape was essentially quiet because it was an industrial farm. There were pesticides and fertilizer, and it was a kind of a monoculture enforced ecosystem. And over time, it's become this really cacophonous environment, and it changes year on year as the restoration is kind of taking root and different ecosystems are taking root there. We started to explore ways that people could listen back in time. So you could stand in one place and hear what that place sounded like this morning, or a month ago, or a year ago, or 2 years ago, or all the way back to the beginning when it was this agriculture site. And then also to hear kind of outwards from where you were, you could explore the limits of your own hearing and try and expand that sphere around yourself. So that's kind of where I started, and that really got me interested in listening to these large corpuses of material, and later on in what we're doing at Max with field recording material in particular. So I can show a little bit about that project if we're ready to go there. Yeah, shall I?
Please.
Okay.
Wandering
So-
Mind is what Gershon's played in the festival, as you see, and it was an extraordinary experience.
All right. Are you seeing my screen?
We were,
Are you seeing my screen?
we are, but it's they're sharing now.
Oh, okay. So the work we've been doing at Max Festival is borrowing from field recordings that have been made by other people over the last 20-25 years. Field recording is really a practice of listening that people have been engaged with going back to the kind of mid-late 20th century, where people go out with microphones and try to make generally pristine recordings of different environments, soundscapes, they call them. And so I went and grabbed about 60,000 of these field recording soundscapes that people had made and contributed through Creative Commons licenses to the Internet Archive through this project called Radio Apiary. So I collected all of those, and I started to think about, together with Xin Liu, with whom I've been working on this project, think about not looking at a big corpus of recordings as having a kind of a singular message, but actually what it would mean to really dive into the ocean of material and float around inside of it. And so we started to use these AI techniques that would make maps of the corpus and allow us to sample from the maps and kind of roam through them. So when you're looking at what you're looking at here is about 5 million very short samples that have been broken up from these field recordings made by other people and organized by a neural network called a representation learning network. And its organization is entirely based on the sound material itself. So no labels are involved. Everything is purely kind of derived from relationships in the acoustic sound. And then we took that and turned it into a performance interface where we could sample from these from this map and listen to it like this. So you're hearing a piece of a recording someone else has made, where each of these little dots, as I'm moving over them, comes from a different recording. And there are, like I said, some millions of those dots. We can make these maps actually by using sound, using listening ourselves. So we can make recordings that give us anchor points into the universe of sound that we have. And that becomes another kind of listening practice, like an indexing listening practice into this universe of sound. I could go on, but I think I'll pause there and just put a flag in listening while we're asleep, which is really where this project eventually ended up, and something maybe we can talk about as we go further through the conversation.
Definitely, we can talk about that. And now, thank you, Gershon. Nini, you're listening in a different way in your piece, Doppelganger. So tell us about how it's.
Okay, thank you, Kay. Hi, Gershon, Annie. So I think deep listening for me, it's really means the deep attention and the deep awareness. So it's more like everyday practice, and every time I go performance, I need to be in the present and value this moment to be able to make my practice and make the performance happen. This as general, I think that's what deep listening to me means. But come back to this specific work, Doppelganger, we developed during the Max Festival is, so the setup for this dance performance is I sit very close to the audience. Like it's not as normal as another dance piece. We're far away. And at this setting, we are very close. And I start dance in micro motion and daily gestures. And audience can listen and basically can breathe in with my movement in silence. So there's a big chunk of silence and space and gap to sharp my focus, and also for audience to sharp their focus. They can be really pay attention to what I'm doing, even tiny motion. And also I think the listening for this piece, particularly, I think the live feed is the deep listening to this piece. I feel like it's very interesting, and also like a paradox in this work is, as performer, I have to live in the moment. But for this piece, I could not see my dance partner. I only have more than 100 of sound cues and long durational of silence to dance with. And most importantly, I think I have to really listen to something I know in my head, which is algorithms. So we basically use 3 simple rules. So one is the fixed delay of time, fixed number of delay. So 4 seconds, 6.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second, Nini, and say she's talking about the projection that is behind her, a projection of herself.
Yeah.
on a slight time delay. So she is having a duet with herself. That duet is under the influence of machine learning. So that's why she's dancing with the algorithm.
Yeah.
Listening to the algorithm. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this algorithm working together with my choreography. So we basically use three simple rules. So one is three methods. So the first one is a fixed delay, and the second is fast forward rewind. And the third is a use of machine learning to jump around in time to find the moment is similar to what I'm doing now in this moment on stage. So like this is the reason this is a deep listening to me is compared to dance with a pre-edited video, somehow I have more control to it, but I'm constrained by this algorithm. So I need to aware of my doppelganger, which is project self, like capture my live performance in real time. And so what I'm doing is effect what's my past and my what's happened to the future, which is the next on stage. So basically is how to, as performer, how to be in the moment and also have a full awareness of what just happened and what's going to happen next of your doppelganger in the same time. So this is a deep listening to me, I would say. Yeah, I hope it's clear.
That's wonderful, Nini. And I want to pick up on something. Gershon referred to absence and presence. And in Doppelganger, I experienced the presence of an audience in the silence in a way I have never experienced it before. You talked about listening to the silence. The silence in Doppelganger, the audience was quieter than any group of normally noisy human beings I have ever been with. So it's profound listening to the silence that goes on. And so somehow, and my belief is always that the performer's belief in their mind is what's transferred to the audience. That's really what performance is. So you have transferred that deep listening to the audience. They are absolutely still, and it's really incredible. So, and what I sense from all of your pieces is that sense that you're bringing a presence to the fore. And Gershon's bringing this sort of planet Earth, how we share the Earth. We go around the world on his piece very subtly. You move through the world. And Annie takes us to this presence of the whales that we are blessed by in her performance. So I just wanted to ask you all, what is it about sound and silence that you think moves us so deeply? Is it because we're so we're usually assaulted with visuals, or what is it about the sound that gets to our very core?
I can jump in. I think there's a few things going on, at least for me. I can only speak to my own experience. I think there's because we are in a visual culture, there's something about focusing on sound that connects to going inwards in a way that I think looking at something around us doesn't. And that's why I can speak for myself, because I think that is my experience in the visual culture. And that's part of it. It's like we can be in a concert and there's a whole orchestra making music in front of us, and we can be thinking about so many different things. There's something about that really rare time where we get to have a purely sonic experience that makes us go to all sorts of places in our minds. But at the same time, it's really focused on something that's happening in our immediate surroundings. And it's that tension. I think also that's kind of the reference to silence too. There's that tension between being ultra focused on what's happening around you and your mind going where it wants to go. That I think is at play in all of these conversations about listening. And for me in particular, because I have audience members that are falling asleep, and some of them are worried that they might sleep too. I had some audience members worried that they might sleep too long and miss part of part of the presentation, where in fact I was actually encouraging them to sleep through the experience, and others that were worried they wouldn't sleep enough. So there's kind of this play around how much to be inside yourself and how much to be with everything that's happening. And I think listening really just makes that really super activates that process.
Here's Sean's piece, Wandering Mind. The audience is on yoga mats, and he takes us, he and Xing, his partner, take us to a liminal place between waking and sleeping, or maybe full sleeping. And that is this place where the sound has a different effect. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So anyway, that's the yoga mat. I wanted to explain to the audience. You're not sitting up in a chair, you're on a yoga mat. And so, Annie, I wanted to know, just to shift a little bit to the science and the technology you all use always brings us to some place of greater understanding of what I think of as the more than human. Like, what is it that we are here? We aren't just centered on human beings. We have other species we live with. And Annie, how do these whales speak to you? And what are they saying? What are their songs? How are they songs? How are they songs?
How are they songs? So first, I just have to say to Gershon that I fell asleep for probably 3/4 of the piece last night, and it was, I don't even know where I was, but I would come in and out, and it was really, it was really a light touch. It was really nice, and it was really rich for, I feel like that kind of liminal space to my imagination. And yeah, thank you for the experience. It was a good one. And the whales, they sing. So why we call it song is that it is mostly it's about the patterning of sounds in time. Two great whales are the bowhead whale and the humpback whale. And there are also gibbons and mice, rock hyraxes, and some bats. And what all of these mammals have in common is like in bird song, that there are these frequency and amplitude modulated elements, and there's patterning, there's repetition. And what you find in humpback song is that there's a hierarchical organization. It's different than social sounds they make. Only males sing, and they sing primarily during the breeding season. And there are the smallest unit is like a note, and that those are organized into phrases that repeat. Those phrases that repeat create themes, and then humpback sing under 10 themes that repeat in these song cycles. And the longest song cycle on record for any recording of a humpback whale is 23 hours in length. So that's why it's called song, and that's what differentiates it from other social sounds they make. Can you remind me the first part of your question? It was really lovely, and I want to remember it right.
It's just how these whales take you beyond the human, take you to a place that is what I would call more than human, or an awareness that's different than the centralizing of the human.
You know, I don't know what that is, but it really has that effect on many people. And I've been watching kind of a range of reactions to hearing the humpback song, when people have been coming to Invisible Dog, and kids start imitating the song when they hear it. Sometimes adults do too when they come in, but kind of the full age range. There's something special about, they sing in the same kind of frequency range that we respond to. And it's part of the mystery of humpback singing, and I don't know what it is. And I think it's maybe that ineffable quality that makes it so compelling, and why I keep seeking it out. I did hear a colleague of mine, he was speaking about Persian poetry recently, and he was talking about this kind of other world where it's not the ear's job to listen, but it's the soul's job to listen. And it was in the context of Persian poetry, but I felt like there is that experience for a lot of people when they listen to humpback song. It's not a listening with the ear, but it's kind of a listening with the soul. And that resonance is a really special and beautiful thing. I was presenting with Katie to this international group of musicians, and this musician who lived in East Africa asked to us, he was listening to humpback song. I don't know how much he listened to it, and he asked us how humpback song had changed our hearts. I thought it was such a beautiful question, and I felt like it really, I don't know what that is, but it's such a special quality to have in our lives, and so it's really a pleasure to be listening in everyone's company.
I have to say, having seen all three of your pieces in the festival, that they all take you to this higher plane of awareness. Nini's plays is performance, it's a human being performer, but listening to the silence and being with that audience takes you to this community place, and a place beyond the individual. And Gershon's takes you to this place with the rest of the planet, and Annie's yours takes us beyond being the center species, realizing there are other species. So I guess my question is, when you go about making this work, are you planning to be that epic? Are you imagining the epic experience we have? Like, Nini, when your doppelganger comes on the stage with you, it's just a stunning moment. Do you have a piece of that where we could see the
Sorry, can you ask your question again?
Sure. I'm wondering if you have a piece of that. I'm saying that somehow all of your pieces focus us. We're focused on you, a human, but somehow the listening in your piece connects us to a larger community in a larger sense than ourselves, and here connects us to the planet. And the community of the planet, and Annie connects us to other species. So you're connecting us in these amazing ways. So I was saying it's epic what you're all accomplishing. So I wanted to see if you had that moment when your doppelganger first comes on stage, because it's a beautiful moment of artistry, and the piece raises to that epic place. Do you have a video you could show us?
Yeah, I could show you a video of the beginning of the doppelganger. I think we use very simple strategy, which is use this codified rules of interaction. I think more specifically is manipulate time in the live feed, like to help to make a duet out of one person. And I think that allow you to see the relationship, the live me and my doppelganger, our precision and direction and our counterpoint more clearly, as the only variable become to the only variable becomes to a time. So if there's a two person, they're dance together, whenever how similar they are, or they're doing similar movement in same beats, but there's still too much variable. But if only me and my myself in past a second, we show up together, and this simple arrangement of orientation, and the we look at each other, we look away of each other. So like this only variable as a timing, I don't know, like somehow magical happen, like the simplicity. I wonder if can connect to people, like they see in this like invisible relationship more visible, and they have a reflection of themselves. I don't know.
Well, it's also, yeah, you're right, because you all connect. Maybe the epic effect of it, the profound effect all these pieces have, is the fact that you're not using language as your primary
Yeah.
communication. And now we're listening, and we think of listening first to language, but you've all used other means to communicate this. I didn't realize that till just now, that they all have this epic effect on the audience. So congratulations. We're so pleased to have them at the Neuroverse. And
for me, I would say, just to kind of add on to that, in the Wandering Mind, as we presented it at Neuroverse, we invited musicians to be part of this field recording, listening, composition, sampling process we were doing. And the idea there is really to have the musicians be guiding the audience's ears as they're drifting between waking and sleep. And we've come up with different metaphors for what that guiding looks like, what kind of translation or process is going on, ranging from a sketchbook that is in kind of musical gesture, where the musicians are kind of jotting down ideas that are coming past them, to really being like the audience's ear, and just sort of interpreting for the audience what's going on by adding these little bits of color and timbre and kind of rooting some of this stuff that's really up in the air, in really kind of particular ideas. So I think some of the kind of communal feeling we get in the room, I think comes, or a lot of it comes from what the musicians are doing to hold that space, with between me generating the sort of abstraction and the audience who are kind of receptive.
Very much that way. And Annie, when people come in and listen to the whales, do they sit? Do they walk through? Do they talk to you? What do they do when they're listening to the whale?
Yeah, it's been the whole range. You know, some people will just kind of stand near the entrance, and it'll kind of take them a while to enter the full installation. Other people walk right into the center under the nets and lay down and close their eyes. Some people find one spot kind of deep within the installation and kind of stay put. But it's really been the full range, which has been a pleasure to see.
Yeah, because you have, your installation moves people differently. Gershon moves them in people are in very different physical spaces. And the forum opened with Annie Murphy-Paul talking about how the space we're in has much to do with intelligence. So intelligence works differently in different spaces and different configurations. So it's a wonderful profession. The three ways of moving through art is a beautiful, anyway. And so I want to talk a little bit about collaboration as artists in this space with technology. Nini is part of the Noom Collective, and it is a group of, how many, Nini?
We have 5 members for the Noom Collective. Mimi, Thierry, and Nan, and YG, and me. Yeah, 5 people.
And yesterday I was talking to Mimi and she said, you fight a lot, which I found very endearing, because that's what it takes to make great art. It takes conflict. For some reason, it takes conflict. So
yeah.
Why is the collective important to you in this space where you used advanced science and your very beautiful human presence?
That's a good question. I mean, the reason we become the Noom Collective, like the reason is very simple, is we like to work with each other and we don't want each other go. So we just keep them as our collaborator. So, and as you said, like we argue a lot, like we basically like each tiny decision we make together. And we're now trying to define role, like even I coming from background of dance and choreography, and also do programming too, but certainly like YG and Mimi is more strong on the programming skill, but they also define the way of how to making choreography. So it's like, it's a way of I feel like a broad the notion for me, my side is like they sometimes broad the notion of choreography, what does mean to me. And we cover, I think like everyone, we have some like, I don't know, like a blank spot, like you cannot think about, but with a member of your friend and we always can, it's like some aspect they can always bring up you're never thinking about. So it's just it's just a great way to discuss and to see things more roundly, and also sure we have the same interest to asking some basic question about sensation and cognition and body and our physicality. I don't know if I answered your question. Yeah.
And Annie's in on a new collaboration for her. So how is that?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been remote for the most part. I met Kyle, it was like 15 months ago now, just virtually. And we worked over a year together, having never met in person. And it was really rich. We read books together. We listened to a lot of humpback song, talked through lots of ideas. And although COVID was horrible, the kind of silver lining for me personally was having just a lot of time to really get into lots of different areas with Kyle. And that was really, really valuable intellectually and artistically. And it allowed the project to kind of grow in new directions. I mean, this all kind of started with this collaboration with Katie, who's a friend in Ithaca several years ago, and then extending to the Hawaiian Marine Mammal Consortium, then Kay getting in touch, and then beginning to work with Kyle, and then the scenic, and then Center for Coastal Studies to get all of this debris, and then Amy. So it's kind of just like picked up these people along the way, and I've just really valued Max's support and to kind of go through this lengthy and really valuable process with these people.
And there, Sean, finally we have the slow immediate.
Yeah, I mean, we fight a lot too.
Can we say you're married to your partner?
You can say that we are married. So we fight a lot, but I think some of the more like intense and protracted fights are around work. Because we do some of the work that we both do is together, and some of the work we do separately. The Wandering Mind is a project we have both been working on for a couple of years. I'd say I don't think it makes sense to say that we kind of take particular roles in our fights, but I think we do the tension. Oops, there's a phone ringing behind me. The tension between us is often around the tension between us is often around the kind of prominence of a kind of like a platforming or like a technological aspect of the work, and some storytelling that we want to be doing in a way. I tend to lean towards building platforms. Part of the reason I'm working with these musicians for Neuroverse is because I really want to give this platform over to someone else to perform with, and I think for Shin, the goal is always storytelling and performance herself, and so that kind of is complementary, but in the process of making can sometimes be a tension. So yeah, I think that fighting is productive when it's properly channeled.
Right, exactly. Constructive fighting, but it is a certain tension that is needed in the work, and it's interesting. Do you all think we're moving toward a model of collaboration in making art, as opposed to sort of the auteur model of central person?
I think when we're talking about these really complex systems that everyone here is using. And when we're trying to express things in an environment, in a world in which like so much complexity underpins like the simplest thing that everyone is doing, collaboration is almost is kind of essential. We can't really work with these types of technologies without building on a lot of things that already exist, whether it's open source material kind of at a base level, or with other people to try and understand what these things are and talk more about it in the process of making. I think that there's something really particular about working with technology and this type of complexity that to me necessitates more collaborative styles.
I'll come in. My internet cut out for a minute, so I think I got the question right. But collaboration, yeah, I think for me, one of the most kind of thrilling parts about it is, I mean, obviously the piece that we're working on has this, it's on one hand looking at, you know, the creative intelligence of another species, but there's also a conservation angle. And I do think that one thing I've learned in this project, working not only with Kyle, but also with marine scientists and different people at the Center for Coastal Studies, is the kind of different entry points people have for caring about another species, and they're really varied. I was really got into humpbacks because of their song, you know. Someone else, it's something else. I mean, Kyle's really gotten a lot out of, you know, exploring machine learning with humpback song. And I think the kind of plurality of entry points is a strength of collaboration. And for our project, it's been exciting to kind of see how that translates also into finding ways to communicate effectively, which has been a good learning experience for me.
And Nini is alone on stage, but behind her, she has her collective. And do you feel their presence when you're on stage, Nini?
I totally feel them, like because I before perform I indeed nervous usually, and I have to like have a long time to be alone. And after my perform, I ask Yu Guang and Nan, and they all do this hundreds of cues for me, and the Mimi like build an entire like programming the system behind me. So I do feel like, and Thierry make this very nuanced layer of sound. They are indeed all performing with me in the same time, even they're not physically appeared on stage. And I think most valuable like learning for me is like we really want to make this total work of art. Like you don't so that's why we also don't want to define our role in the group. So we basically each day during our our fighting and our discussion and our eating lunch and dinner together, we are learning each other's media. And so we feel like that's a good way to see see art through another lens, so from another art or form of lens or another discipline. I don't know, I feel like make the process itself is like a learning process, and instead of like it just like more rich of experience, I would say. I don't know. Yeah, it's very natural.
And I'm going to take that total work of art, because that's what I mean by epic. And the interesting thing is you all achieve that by listening deeply, and you got it. Science and technology is distracting, and you get us to listen as Annie said, we start to listen in our soul. We start to hear really deeply in your pieces. So I want to thank you very much for being in Max Machina and for creating this beautiful work, which I hope they all go around the world, which I trust they will. Annie, Siren is already going to Mass Mocha, and I know I will see the other pieces many places. It's really extraordinary work. So I just want to thank you all for coming today. And anything anybody want to say? Anything to any?
I would just like to thank you, Kay, and to thank Max for making these collaborations possible. It's really extraordinary what you've done, and we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you.
Oh, I'm
Same. Yeah.
deeply grateful for that.
Absolutely.
And
Seconded.
that's what we live for. So we live
Thank you, Kay.
We live for that, to create these moments for you guys. So, and therefore that is lighting the way forward. I really believe that. So thank you very much. That's very, I'm very
Thank you, Kay. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming. There's one more installation of our MAXforum that will be coming up shortly. And it's really, in a way, the crescendo. Have the robot armies arrived? And we're going to look at some of the darker side of technology that we will try to avoid. So thank you all for coming, and I will see you all later.